episode of Tiny Nest. I'm Kiva.
And I'm Jake. This series is following our tiny house project from the early stages through to completion and beyond.
In this episode, we show the one time so far that we've taken our tiny house on the road.
And be sure to check out our previous video on how we prepared for this trip.
Loopy, come here. Come here. Good girl, good girl. Early in 2015, we were approached by the organizer of a local event called Flourishing in a Green Economy. It was a trade show of sorts, and they were looking for a few tiny houses to have on site because they fit with the eco-living theme. Okay, good doggies. Good doggies. After they offered to cover the cost of towing to get the house to and from the venue, we spoke with the owner of the towing company to clarify a few things. The official status of our tiny house was still nothing more than a utility trailer in terms of how we could insure it ourselves. We looked into what would be involved in having it reclassified as a U-built travel trailer so that we could insure it for its actual value. We would have had to bring it to an approved facility for an inspection, which presented a few problems, both with getting this done in time and being unsure that it would pass since it was still under construction. The interior was still at the rough-in stage. Luckily, towing companies have special insurance that can cover all sorts of unusual loads, since it's normal for them to be tasked with moving expensive or uninsured vehicles, etc. We talked it over in detail with the company and were reassured that in the unlikely event of an incident on the road, that it would be covered by their insurance. This actually simplified things a lot for us, and if we need to move the house again in the future, we would probably use this method. We learned something about the trailer's suspension that day. The first little dip in the driveway that the house went over caused a loud and somewhat alarming clunk and visible shifting of weight.
What was that?
I don't know. The audio that the camera picked up doesn't really do it justice.
Was that just the suspension?
We thought that a joint had seized while the trailer had been stationary for so long, and we could see that the left side of the suspension was now sitting differently than the right. We even sprayed some lubricant on the right side, hoping that it would right itself the same way the left side seemed to have.
And it hasn't moved in a year, so...
I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Yeah, we probably could have leveled the driveway, eh? Oh my god.
Oh god.
It's so tippy looking.
Once on the road, we followed the house and convinced ourselves that it was in fact sitting a little off kilter, and were constantly bracing ourselves for the moment that it would shift and set itself back level.
It's just like, ugh. It's gonna shift suddenly and be like, and the whole thing's gonna shake around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It actually looks really short.
Like,
doesn't look nearly as tall. It's just right itself. I was like so nervous about it righting itself.
we should have put a big sign on it with our website.
Oh, dude. Is it out, or is it just like my imagination? I feel like I can see more tire on the right.
Yeah, I think I can too.
I wonder which way we're going here, if we're gonna go on the main highway. Like the inland highway.
Yeah. I don't know if I want that doing 120.
No. No. Even 100. It'd be scary. It should be 4.15. Yeah, tons. Yeah, 4.15. We're probably 4.2 or 4.3, like 4.2 to 4.3 meters.
Right.
Is our height. Oh man, that is close.
It's just so surreal that it's like, you know how many times I've been on this street? And I never thought I'd be towing my little house through it.
It's funny, I was nervous that it was going to be like bouncing around more and I'd be like, like just like all the construction like shifting around.
Yeah.
But it's not, well, I mean, it's kind of bumping there, but it's not really bumping that much.
But even after going over speed bumps and having the tow truck raise and lower the tongue, it made it all the way to and from the venue back home without any change. We'll explain the conclusion in a sec, but we should mention that the event was a great experience, but we were so swamped with people checking out our house that we didn't have time to take any video. Here it is on site beside the other locally built tiny house. So once we got home and had more time to look at it, we realized that nothing had seized at all, but that one linkage in the suspension seemed to be upside down on the right side and causing it to sit higher than the left. We theorized that the left side had been upside down as well and had flipped when it went over that dip in the driveway. We stared at it for a long time trying to figure out how to set it right. We used a combination of our little car jack, the trailer's tongue jack, and the stabilizer jacks to get as much weight as possible off the right wheels. Then, making sure to keep all limbs and appendages clear of what was certainly a lot of potential force, we used the car jack and some blocks of wood to put pressure on the suspension from different angles to see if we could get it to flip back to its normal position. Sure enough, a certain application of pressure caused it to spring free and flip back to the proper orientation. The wheels actually came off the ground and we had to carefully lower the right side back down using a combination of all the jacks, since the stabilizer jacks alone are not meant to operate under a load like that. After it was all done, we realized that we should have taken a video of the whole ordeal, but we were too focused on getting it figured out. So, the question then became, how did it get upside down in the first place? Well, before we were properly informed, we had raised the empty and thus very light trailer right up off the ground using only the stabilizer jacks, mostly to level it easily. We even built part of the floor before realizing that the wheels and suspension should be supporting the actual weight, and that the stabilizers are just to reduce bouncing and rocking. So when we lowered the overextended suspension back down onto the slightly uneven ground, one linkage on each side set itself upside down. So, this is an awfully elaborate explanation, but what we wanted to share was the details of our incorrect use of the trailer and how it caused a somewhat stressful and quite bewildering experience for our first tiny house move.
So hopefully that all made sense. It's kind of hard to explain and show without proper video of us actually solving the issue, but there was one other quirk that we learned about the house when we went to move it that we wanted to share, which is that the door hardware was really hard to operate when the stabilizer jacks were retracted. And you can actually see me struggling with this when we were hooking up the house to the towing vehicle. I was trying to deadbolt the door to make sure it was secure during transit, but it just would not operate. And the reason for this is that when we were building everything, which includes the installation of the door and the door jamb and everything, we had the stabilizer jacks deployed to level it out and kind of hold the whole structure in what would be sort of a normal position. And obviously, because everything's lined up in that normal position, the door operates properly and latches and there's no trouble at all. But with the stabilizer jacks retracted, the sort of flex of the trailer and the weight of the house and everything tweaked things just enough to misalign the latches and the strike plates. The regular latch we could get to engage with a bit of effort, but for whatever reason the deadbolt was out enough that it was just not going to go. Another thing that we didn't get any footage of, and actually didn't even see with our own eyes, was that shortly after leaving the venue to come home, the house was going around a corner, and luckily at a very low speed, the door actually came flying open, and without an awning bar here to stop it, it stopped against this piece of trim, which was a bit of a cringe moment when we realized that had happened, but nothing was damaged. And it turns out that in the chaos of cleaning up and getting ready to leave, it wasn't Kiva or I who was the last person to touch the door and close it, and whoever it was didn't know that there was an issue with it latching. And there's a bit of a friction with the way our door closes, so that person just assumed that it was closed, but really it was just loosely in place. And then of course, a certain twist and shifting as the house turned around this corner, like I was describing, had it come free and fly open. So we of course made sure to get the latch to engage before carrying on, and made it home without any further incident.
If you want to see some of our previous videos, click on the preview tiles, and subscribe if you want to follow our progress. You can also visit our website here. And that the stabilizers are just too... That was weird.
That's stable.
So when we lowered and overextend...
Yeah.